Hi, this is Joe again with another review. For the sake of this video, I'm discussing the 1987 film Project X, starring Matthew Broderick and Helen Hunt. Of course, and this film is kind of like Free Willy, but with chimpanzees in it. What I mean is, of course, everybody knows the plot of Free Willy. When killer whale was captured in an aquarium and was trained to do all these tricks, and he escapes. Other people free them. Well, they're like the same thing, but with chimpanzees, and with the U.S. military instead of an aquarium in this case, or a zoo. Well, like I said, so Matthew Broderick as a airman in the U.S. Air Force who's like a screw up. He keeps getting himself in trouble. He keeps getting demoted and stuff. And he gets assigned to do this animal experiment thing, or to work on and oversee it. And he works with one particular chimp named Virgil, like he's training. Even though he has no experience training animals, so why the hell is he, in this thing? Because he has no experience working with animals. But only in Hollywood do they have a guy who has no experience working with animals. And I'm not talking about Matthew Broderick in his whole career. I'm talking about his particular character has no experience working with animals, so he gets assigned to this job, and he gets assigned to one particular chimp named Virgil, who, for the first part of the film, was working with Helen Hunt. This chimp was assigned to Helen Hunt for a thesis she was working on. So when her funding was up, they took the chimp away from her, or they took Virgil away from her. And instead of originally they were supposed to put Virgil in the zoo, but meanwhile, I guess they got a miscommunication or something, I guess, and put the chimp in the military for this experiment. Now, of course, what happens is, that eventually the chimps, as soon as they get better at flying in airplanes or U.S. military planes, they get into this other experiment where they fly, it's all simulated, a simulation of flying through a nuclear, or just after a nuclear blast. See how much a chimp could take, and they could relate it to a human being. If a chimpanzee could take this much, a human being could take this much radiation. That type of thing. And at first, you didn't really know about this part of the experiment. And they said, "Oh, we're training how to fly airplanes to see how especially in particular altitudes." That's what Matthew Broderick thought was, how to fly a plane in a particular altitude, like a spy plane, something like that, and see if the human body could take, because chimpanzees are actually related to humans, through evolution. So they figured, if a chimpanzee could fly a plane at this altitude, so can a human being. And that's what Matthew Broderick thought his character thought it was going to be, but not knowing that it was going to advance into flying an airplane in radiation. So they did like a room, and they filled up the room with radiation from a nuclear blast, and what would be related to a nuclear blast, and see how much, how long a chimpanzee can last. And when Matthew Broderick thought out about this is ridiculous to do this, and he says, well, because we want to know in case World War III breaks out. Of course, here's the problem with that. This movie took place about 4 years after the height of the Cold War between the United States and Russia, when we might have had a nuclear war. But by that time, 1987, we were negotiating with the Russians and trying to knock down on nuclear stuff. So by 1987, when the movie came out, you also had the Iran-Contra thing going on. So the Iran-Contra scandal was going on at the time the movie came out. So never fails. So all that stuff that was going on was, it became less and less possible in 1987 about nuclear war because we were negotiating with Russia at that time, like I said. So, I mean, by then, a lot of the fears by 1987 when the movie came out was starting to die down, and especially 2 years later when the Berlin Wall fell, you knew that's not going to, the Cold War had ended, like 2 years later. So it was, kind of like a ridiculous plot to keep putting these chimpanzees in there to train them on how if they could survive a nuclear blast, if they fly an airplane, in relation to humans. So when Matthew Broderick was finding out about all that stuff, it was becoming more and more of a bond with the one particular chip he was training with, Virgil. Like I mentioned earlier, Virgil's backstory. So what happened was Matthew Broderick tracked down where the chip came from, or Virgil came from, and he tracked down Helen Hunt. He said, "Look, if I tell you more, I'm going to get court-martialed for this, because I'm in the military. And we're on a military base in Florida. That's where Virgil is." And he said, and wait a minute, he's supposed to be in a zoo. I said, look, I don't know about that. All I know is that somehow he got here. And so Helen Hunt came down and wanted to know what the hell was going on and try and get Virgil back. And they want to release him to her. But of course, we know what happens in a movie like this. You know what's going to happen. They eventually find out before. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but they did find out one of the most wrenching scenes to watch, and I think the most dramatic scene in the whole movie was when Virgil finds out he somehow gets out of his cage. He gets out of his cage and tracks down or finds one particular chimp that was experimenting on. And it was I think it was Bluebeard, and he had like a bluish beard on him. Found out that he had died, and he was very upset about it. And Virgil went into the room where all the other chimps were and started screeching, screaming back and forth like that. And that was the most dramatic scene in the whole movie. And well, it is to see it. And even though they were trained to do that, I mean, all these chimps were all trained to do it. At least the chimp Virgil was trained to go, and act off like that. And like I said, it was the most dramatic scene in the whole movie. Now, of course, it was before Matthew Broderick tracked down Helen Hunt's character, and he found out that the chimp was, was her chimp, and he worked with Virgil for like 3 years before funding went up, and was supposed to go to a zoo and all that stuff. Then they try and get the chimp out, and of course, big surprise, they got the chimp out from the military. And I'm not going to say how they do it, because it is too implausible. Spoiler alert here. Virgil, the chimp, flies a plane, an actual it wasn't one of those big planes like a 747. It's not that big. It's like one of those little biplanes, one of those smaller planes, like a two-engine or a two-engine plane. Flies it off the base with all the other chimps in it. So all of the chimps, they have to break out of the from the base. They all got on this plane, and Matthew Broderick and Helen Hunt was on the plane with them, and Matthew Broderick was going to fly the plane out of there, but they got stopped by the military police or the MPs, and so they got out, and the military police didn't check the plane to see if where the chips were at, because they believed they were still running around the base, but they were on the plane. So Virgil got into the pilot's chair, and I'm not going to say cockpit because the plane is too small. So he gets into the driver's seat, and he actually physically flies the plane out. So it's like totally implausible. I'm not saying that it's not capable of flying a plane. I mean the military had used chimpanzees back in the 50s and 60s, but to to me, it was like completely implausible that this chip will fly an actual plane out of the off the base. But fortunately, the plane crashed in the Florida Everglades. Another spoiler. And what happened, and remember, was they were looking for the chips. Remember, when the chips were hiding out in the Everglades, and they never found. And at the end of the movie, as the military was looking for the chips, there's the chips. And the military is looking for these chips, and the chips are hiding right there, and you can see them hiding. It's like almost camouflage. I mean, I don't know how they could be camouflage. I mean, this is camouflage. What I'm wearing. So unless the chips have to be wearing my shirt or shirts like this, there's no way that you could be hiding in the Everglades. I mean, come on. I mean, you could obviously see them. I mean, come on. I mean, not camouflage. I mean, it was just completely implausible. The ending of this movie, but like I said at the top of this video, it's like Free Willy with chips. Even though Free Willy came out, I think it came out like 6 years later after this movie. So it's, you know, kind of totally implausible what happened in this film. But you know, it is a watchable film, and it is, I mean, except for maybe War Games, it was really the first really adult. To me, this is really the first adult role that Matthew Broderick had in his career, and he only did it for like a few movies. He only did, I think, about maybe 3 movies previously before this one. So it's still pretty early in Matthew Broderick's career, and he did a dramatic. And this is really his first dramatic role. You can say, oh, what about War Games? Yeah, War Games, yeah, but they had some real funny moments in the early part of the film. So, but this one, he plays it completely, totally straight. I don't mean sexually, of course. I mean, I'm talking about a straight role that's a serious, dramatic role without any really funny moments to line up the mood in this film, and it's, you know, really the first serious role he had, and he could be a real serious actor, even though Matthew Broderick has done mostly comedies, except for War Games in this film in his career. So that's my review of the movie Project X. Please click on the video, please rate it. Please subscribe to my channel, and please forward this video on your Facebook pages. And you check out all my reviews and on my YouTube channel, RowdyC.com. It's all WDY, and then that's C.com. On the homepage, the Rowdy reviewer, Chris Lee Moore. And please check out all of his videos on this website. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.